turning the pod, you're striking the pod as you're turning, is what I'm trying to say. And then when you breach the pod, it reveals the cocoa bean.
Oh.
Now these cocoa beans have no semblance of a taste or smell of chocolate whatsoever. They're very citric, very sweet, very clean to the sense of taste as well as smell. Now notice a thick walled pod, 90% of the weight is in the pod itself. Some of the wall structures of a cocoa pod can be as much as a ½ inch thick. But the pod was designed that way for a purpose, in order to entomb the beans in an airtight container so that none of the atmospheric conditions could penetrate through that thick wall of the pod, adversely affecting the condition of the cocoa beans before they were officially opened. Mother Nature decided to put a white slimy coating on every bean. It's a sugar yeast mucilage coating known as Puma, P-U-M-A. Mother Nature put that white slimy coating on every bean for a reason, and she knew as man evolved through the years they would eventually figure it out, and they did. The beans are now exposed to the environment. In the environment is the oxygen. The oxygen in the environment becomes the catalyst that precipitates the yeast in the coating to start converting sugar to alcohol to CO2. That's your basic fermentation chemical reaction. The subtle byproduct of that chemical reaction is heat. So as these beans are exposed to the environment as well as the oxygen in the environment, they will eventually start to ferment. As they start to ferment, each one of these beans have been given the ability to be able to take the byproduct of heat from the chemical reaction that's occurring and direct the heat to the surface of the bean, creating a surface heat known as ectothermal energy. Mother Nature gave these beans the ability, once they're exposed to the environment, to be able to generate their own surface heat and heat themselves up for one reason: to take that white slimy coating off. Now once the coating is off, it reveals a rusty colored shell, which you can attest by all the beans in the drying bins as you walk by, and immediately under that rusty colored shell is the pure meat of the chocolate. This is called the chocolate nib, N-I-B. This is the pure meat of the chocolate, and this is what goes into your bods when you eat chocolate. This is what chocolate is made out of. Now, as I mentioned in the orientation, this started out as a beautiful purple color in the natural state, and when it fully ferments and oxidizes, it goes from purple almost to this black chocolate. In the nib, there are polyphenols, antioxidants, phenolic acid, flavonoids that are very beneficial for human consumption. So you should eat a little bit of dark chocolate every day of your life. Now, some people prefer the milk chocolate. If you're a milk chocolate eater, you're getting the natural polyphenols that are naturally in the meat of the chocolate. But once milk is added as an ingredient to categorically make milk chocolate, milk serves as an inhibitor to the free expression of the natural polyphenols. So that's why it's deemed healthy to eat the dark over the milk. The operative word, a little bit. If you sit down and eat a pound or two of dark chocolate, you're going to get a lot of polyphenols. The body's going to relish all the nice things coming its way from that standpoint. But you also may notice your bods are beginning to grow in certain areas you don't necessarily want them to grow. Because yes, there is sugar in chocolate, about 150 calories per ounce. There are also two strong stimulants in the nib, caffeine and theobromine. 0.5% is caffeine, so when you eat chocolate, you get that little kick of caffeine. But the major kick comes from a very strong stimulant in chocolate known as theobromine. That's how it gets its scientific name, Theobroma cacao. Theobromine is 2 to 3% by weight of the cocoa bean, and theobromine can induce certain reactionary effects to certain body chemistries. For some people who eat chocolate, may have a tendency to sneeze, some may have a tendency to cough, some may develop a little bit of itchy nose syndrome, some may develop a little bit of nasal congestion. But the most common reactionary effect for some people that eat chocolate are migraine headaches. We had a lady visit us from Denver some time back. She says, ordinarily I do not eat chocolate because I don't relish an opportunity to experience a headache. But she says, you're telling me this is special chocolate, so I'm going to go on record as sampling it. She had a piece of chocolate in one hand and a Tylenol in the other hand. And as soon as she put the chocolate on her palate, in due time, she was experiencing the effects of a dull headache. 20% of the world does not eat chocolate, and it's not by choice. It's due to the adverse effects of a very strong stimulant in chocolate known as theobromine. Now we take the beans and we extract. She's eating the coating. We take the beans and this way it's done one pot at a time with your fingers throughout the world. Now, once you get all the beans extracted, it exposes the placenta. I'm going to break it out. This is the fibrous membrane that the beans were attached to for 65 days and turning the pod for ripening while on the tree. This is al dente in texture, very citric and sweet. These are eaten as snacks throughout the equatorial regions throughout the world. In fact, we eat some of these every time we extract the beans. We sent about 7 pounds of these out last year during the chocolate festival to Jackie Lau. Jackie is the chef de cuisine for Roy Yamaguchi and owns Roy's restaurants throughout the islands. And she made a sorbet and a cake icing out of these placentas. We called it a stem cell ice. So they're getting a little more adventurous to make some food items out of these rather than just eating them or throwing them away.
What does it taste
Just like that?
It's very citric and sweet and very nice to the palate. Alton Brown was here a couple of years back and he's finishing up one of the shows on the Food Channel called Good Eats. And he dedicated the last show to Good Eats to chocolate. So he traveled out from Atlanta to visit. We introduced Alton Brown to these placentas, and he really liked them. But he said they would be even better dipped in chocolate. Now, we've learned that each bean, once it's exposed to the environment, has its own autonomous ability to generate its own surface heat. So when we put the beans in these boxes, we take 5-gallon buckets of the wet loose beans, pour them directly into the empty box. As they begin to accumulate, they will assume a bulk configuration, just like the mound I formed here on the table. Each bean is touching each other. Each bean is generating its own surface heat. So it's kind of like the composting effect. The beans will start sharing the surface heat that they're generating with each other, and within a matter of days, the mass of beans in the fermenting box will elevate in temperature to 122 degrees. And at that point, the white puma coating will clarify to a clear nectar-type liquid, drain off the beans, through the beans, out through the slats, the sides and the bottom of the box, and onto the ground. It's known as sweating the cocoa beans, and these also referred to as sweat boxes. So cocoa beans have the ability, once they're exposed to the environment, they can generate their own surface heat and sweat their white coatings off. This is where the acetic, lactic, and citric acids are creating, killing the beans, and ultimately stimulating the flavor. The fermenting process is a 6-day process. When the beans are fully fermented, they're ready to come out, they stink. They smell like dirty socks. People say, I can't believe chocolate stinks like this. But this is a bacteria aerating process going on. This is